This is Wade, and you are in Wade World. Wade was going through the news, and here is a good tip if you are young and the news is depressing you. Stop paying attention to the news. Wade took a long hiatus from the news after realizing this at a very early age that the news is not really going to help you when you're young in your day to day life. And if you have to consume news, you should consume it from alternative media and from people that are actually somewhat controversial. Because the question today is do people prefer illusions? Try to say that fast three times. Do people prefer illusions? Do people prefer illusions? Do people prefer illusions? And what do we mean by that? Ever remember when you were a child or even as an adult, and you go to a magic show or you see a magic trick and you're like, wow, that's interesting. Wow, that's kind sort of somewhat magical. Well, it seems that most people also prefer the illusion of how the world works to the reality of the world working. If we take the example of a lot of controversial things happening these days, like Candace Owens covering the fact that the French have a transgender man as the first woman of France. And Charlie Kirk got assassinated. Now it's coming out there are connections with a French company and a lot of very odd related dates to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who also platformed Candace and Tucker Carlson, who have started talking about very important things and very obvious things, such as this Macron affair, as also Tucker Carlson said recently, in which he was vilified for. He called out some billionaire, some Jewish billionaire, Bill Ackman, and he's like, why is he worth $9 billion? Just because he knows people and is aggressive? And that is exactly what Wade has been telling you. The current ruling elite class of the majority of the Western world are not physically impressive, they're not charismatic, they're not mentally impressive. They're not the kind of people that you look up and say, yes, that is a man I would follow and die for. That is a leader. He has a magnetic personality. Most of them are actively repulsive looking. So their success is not because of their credit or their ability, it's because they are being helped by their own people who've entrenched themselves in positions of power. The best example, one of the best examples you can see is look at the liberal, not even the liberal, because people who call themselves liberal are just regressive, illiberal fools. So the left, look at their icons on the Supreme Court. Their icon who passed away, what was that Jewess's name? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is a Jew who was instrumental in helping women kill their children in the womb, right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you look at that face and you think, wow, that's my hero, there is something massively wrong with you. That is just a face of pure evil. That's a twisted face. That is the face of a witch that you would show to a child to scare them, like, yo, this witch is gonna come and eat you if you don't go to sleep. If that's your idol, there is something very wrong with you. There's no way in hell, beyond all the propaganda and in spite of all the propaganda, that you should ignore your natural reflexes. You know what they say? If there's something wrong with the face, they hate the human race. That's not wrong. You should follow your instincts. Exceptions don't disprove the rule. If someone is that twisted looking and ugly looking, you can be sure that they support all twisted and ugly modes of thought and policy. And we can even see that right now. There is another Jewess on the court who just looks like an evil, twisted, sick individual. What's the name? Elena Kagan, I believe. It's just like you look at the face, you're like, oh my God, oh, what? The Supreme Court has this person? And you just compare them to the other people on the court, like John Roberts or Brett Kavanaugh or even Amy Coney Barrett, who sort of looks somewhat, she somewhat looks insane also because this is a woman who basically adopted a bunch of Africans. So humongous issue there without going into the detail. If you're not having too many children, but you're going you're not helping your own people or even people slightly removed from that. You're going to the exact opposite end. She's got those crazy eyes as well, but she doesn't look evil yet. But these people, they just look straight up evil. So this is a very valid point. Most people, they just take it on faith that some, like Sam Altman, he's Jewish, he's the founder of OpenAI, billionaire, genius. Another, another Sam was also touted like that. And Sam Altman looks like a weird dude. And the other Sam that was touted was the founder of FTX, Sam Bankman Fried. This is a short, hobbit looking, ugly looking guy. Even the girl he was with, the female Jew who helped him fraud, she just looks like a goblin, right? So you look at these people in the media and they're like the geniuses, they're philanthropic, they're amazing. And you're like, yeah, yeah, I totally believe you. But there's a voice inside you saying, yo, that person looks messed up. That's an ugly, troll like, goblin looking being. How can they be this cool? But that's what brings us to the point of illusion. People prefer the illusion to the reality of the world. And why do people do that? Because you can say people are exhausted, they don't have the energy, they're tired, they have other things to do. But what it boils down to is willpower. For example, let us suppose you are an absolutely average human being who is doing good for your own family and your own society, right? You've got a job, working hard, you're earning, you get a family, you're providing for your family, you're raising your children, right? So most of the time, the issue will be that even if someone sits you down and explains to you that all of your elites, most of them are basically Nepo babies, in that they just hire their own people and just give them valuation. There's another Jewess who was given a $250 million valuation on a one-page blog. This is like levels of ridiculousness, right? Oh, you're a Jew? That's cool, man. We'll make you a billionaire. I'll call up my Jew friends in the bank and they'll call up their Jew friends in the media and we're all going to be successful and you're going to be the next genius, right? And the media tells you, aren't they awesome? Believe they're awesome. If you don't believe they're awesome, there's something wrong with you. So if you're an average person, right, you don't want to deal with all of this. You just want to be told what things are. And as long as they don't impact your life measurably, you're okay with it. And this comes down to a lack of willpower. Even if an average person was sat down for like a week of paid vacation and explained all these things, they would go right back to doing what they were doing because they lack the willpower to do anything against them. The average person doesn't really care or have the willpower beyond that of an NPC depending on survival. A lot of the protests that you see happening in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in Australia, and in Western countries against illegal immigration are only happening not because the average person has some fundamental disagreement suddenly with the concept of immigration, but because the younger generation is going to schools where these people who are measurably different, coming from inferior countries, are attacking them, the host people. Right? The average person is now losing their job. The average person is now homeless. Now, the average person can't have children or have a family and can't feed or clothe himself. While these people, these invaders who are ungrateful and violent, they come to your country and they are taking your job, your money, they're having the family that you can't have, they're having the children that you can't have. And on top of that, they're committing violence against you and getting away with it. So the average person still doesn't care about the actual principles behind who is funding all of this immigration. It's mainly Jews. Who is organizing this takeover under the guise of immigration, what this invasion? Who is doing it? They don't care. They only care because it's hurting them. The average person, the average kid in school now is radicalized, so-called, which means unplugged, because they're getting punched in the face. They weren't getting punched in the face when they were the majority and they didn't care. And they still wouldn't care. And that is how the world works. And the people in charge have understood you can slowly boil a frog. If you try to boil a frog very, very quickly, it'll jump out of the boiling pan, right? Boiling pot. So people prefer the illusion. An interesting extension of this is a lot of the people are looking for saviors, and a lot of the saviors in these countries are girls, which means that the people have come so far away from the natural order that when it is time for the men to fight, they are putting their hopes on girls. Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, is a perfect example. She said all the right thing, and all the men are like, yeah, you can go, you can do it. Immediately backtracked on everything and is continuing the destruction of Italy, as is going to happen with every other nation. Hard times require hard men to create good times. There are no hard girls. And if there are, then the men have failed them and they will never be able to do what is required to save a nation. Rome collapsed. The empires that rose up after them were not made by girls. They were made by hard men. Same with the Greek Empire, the ancient Babylonian Empire, and the ancient Egyptian Empire. So, number one. Number two, a lot of the population is listening to people who just want things to return to the good old times. And what are the good old times? The 50s, the 60s? No. The 50s and 60s in most Western nations, you had already lost. You had destroyed the last stand that some of your own brothers took against the creeping evil that had destroyed your civilizations and empires since 1649 and before. You want to go back to 1950? Guess what 1950 leads to? 2025. Most of the policies that have destroyed you are a direct result of things that go back way beyond where you want to go back to. So you're going to be stuck in this endless circle and going to lose. You're just going to be stuck in, as long as everybody like me and I can drink and I can party and I can have a family and all that, it's all going to be good. No, the things that have led to your destruction go way back, and they don't have anything to do with your demographics or your family. It has to do with the control of your government and your control of your money. So if you're England and if you're Britain, you lost that control in 1649. You don't have to go back to 1950s. You have to go back to the 1630s when you had King Charles I. In 1649, he was executed. He was beheaded by Oliver Cromwell, who was funded by Jewish bankers from the Netherlands. And immediately after executing and beheading the sovereign king, he ushered in all of the rules that made Britain lose its empires, lose its colonies, and now today the British are a minority in their own nation, with anyone from any place in the world being able to call themselves British because they have a passport and a piece of paper. Do you understand? 1950 is not going to solve your problem. You're going to have to go back to 1630. We're talking about 395 years ago, including the traditions and the morals that kept you strong. And even the 1630s, you were already on the brink of being subverted, right? So a lot of people like to live in the illusion. Now, the average person, when he thinks about it, they're like, oh man, I just wish we could go back in time to 20 when I was 20. It's probably like 20 or 30 years ago. You're not going to solve the problem. Oh, we could go back to 1950. You're not going to solve the problem. In America, you talk about 1950s. No, the problem was the 1913, when the monetary control was taken away from the government and given to a centralized Federal Reserve, a private bank. And that problem started in 1893, when, against a lot of Americans' wishes, a bunch of banking Jews were allowed, along with other Jews, to come to America. And this is exactly how successful and how well organized Jewish people are. Within 20 years, they destroyed the autonomy of this country. Hell, Andrew Jackson they tried to kill Andrew Jackson 6 times. He was tried to be assassinated almost 6 times by the bankers because he shut down the banks, because he understood central banking is horrible and it will lead to impoverishment of an entire civilization, which we can see in America today and Canada and every other country which is central banking that is not controlled by their government. And the propaganda that you're faced with is so immense and it's so pervasive that you can't really escape it unless you're an exceptional person. The propaganda starts right from your birth when you're inoculated. It continues into kindergarten, your school, your education, the media you consume, the shows you watch, the people you listen to, the things you want to do. For example, The best example is a lot of young men who would be great defenders of the civilization. Throughout history, the men on top having the most glory were not people who could jump high or play a lot of sports. They were people who were emperors, kings, generals, warriors who defended their nation, great leaders. In today's world, a lot of the qualities of these young men have been subverted into becoming dancing monkeys and entertainers. Okay, if you want to make music, Wade likes to make music, do it for yourself. But that shouldn't be your end goal in life unless you are some highly gifted, talented, driven by music individual. Again, you're the exception then, not the rule. All of you can't be the exception. Very few are actually gifted, right? And the glory throughout history, how many musicians can you name? How many actors can you name from like even 100 years ago? And now go back and see how many kings and emperors you can name, how many generals you can name. So you see, the natural qualities of a natural man have been subverted into effeminate things like entertainment, jumping up and down like a dancing sports ball playing monkey, or running really fast and making a lot of money. Merchants, entertainers, dancing monkeys, which is everybody in the sports and everybody else, none of them have a legacy that is remembered for centuries. Emperors, kings, generals, leaders do. Hell, even today, we remember Ozymandias from ancient Egypt, thousands of years ago. How many entertainers and singers and gladiators and sports people do you remember from his time? I don't. Wade doesn't. So you understand the people, to understand the simplicity and the reality of the world requires a strong man on top of a strong civilization. And that civilization doesn't really drill into the people's brains how everything works because most people find it too complicated. But it drills into them the basics of how things are. This is natural. This is the natural order. This is how things are. Now, if you have the willpower, you can progress up the natural order, your knowledge will increase, and then you will reach the apex. But there is a structure. Now we are living in an unnatural world where you can see and feel something is wrong, but you're being told this is the natural order. And every time you try to question it, you are shamed. And all the other while, you are kept drugged by poison food, poison medication, and the stresses of an unnatural life. The average person has never stopped to think, does it seem natural for you to spend most of your adult life working at a slave job and then getting out of that job and having maybe 10 to 20 years of your life to actually do what you want? And these 10 to 20 years, you're mentally and physically at the end of your life. So you're basically at a much inferior mental and a much inferior physical level than you were for the rest for the life. The best years of your life are being taken away from you. Now, those years could have been taken from you productively in that you do a certain amount of labor and then you get a certain amount of benefit for it. And that benefit can be used for you, by you, to for your family, for your wife, for your children. Now that is a good life. Now you're starting young, you're making money, you're learning about the world, or you're making your family stronger, you're growing your family, you're watching your children grow up. And then by the time you grow old, your children are going to be there, they're going to be successful in their own right, they're going to take care of you, and you're going to have the best adventure of a lifetime. It's not travel, it's having a family, having children, seeing your own bloodline grow in front of your eyes, spending time with them. This is priceless. But now you are in a cycle where you are earning for whom? Yourself. You don't have families. And if you have families, it's just a husband and a wife, childless. What is the purpose of your life if you have no children? You're like parasites. So you consume, you build and consume. You're a dead end, right? Because you can't afford to have them or you don't have them because of propaganda, whatever. This illusion that people live in works because people just want to be, as Caesar said thousands of years ago, bread and circuses, as long as people are fed and they are entertained, they do not have the intellectual capacity or the willpower to actually do something about it. That is why when some absolutely twisted, goblin, demon looking fucker comes on the news and there's this person, this demon goblin looking fucker, he's amazing or she's amazing and so successful, you're like, oh, must be right because I'm so exhausted. I'm just gonna eat my goy slop and agree with you. That's not how the world works. And this illusion only works until the goy slop you're eating, you know, when your mind starts working, you're like, wait a second, there is no goy slop. I'm hungry. Oh, the electricity is out. I can't watch anything. Oh, I got punched in the face every day when I go to work. What is going on? The TV keeps telling me, the Talmud vision keeps telling me that everything is fine and rainbows and candies and diversity is great for me and everybody's like a diverse cast of characters on TV all act like a homosexual man or a girly girl. All of them, right? In reality, that's not going to happen. That's when you wake up. When your bread and when your circus is actively giving you harmful information that gets you punched in the face and stabbed, and your bread dries up, which is where you are right now. And all this happens is because most people prefer the illusion. So this message is not for most people because you are going to keep preferring your illusion. You're going to watch this and go right back to doing what you were doing. Wade knows this intimately. Wade has met innumerable people who continue doing what they're doing, like NPCs. This is more for the people who can actually appreciate the world we're living in, understand how it really works, try to expand that knowledge, and then make something of it, of themselves and of it. Because this world cannot be true order or true chaos. None of these systems work. It has to have a balance. And right now, we are living in a world of utter chaos run by weak, girly men. And you can see it in all the things that they tell you. Their modes of thought are girly. We don't live in a gynocentric society. We live in a girly man society. They push transgenderism because half of them are mentally ill and want to be girls. They push homosexuality because, again, girly men. They push feelings over facts. Their weapons are incessant arguing, insulting instead of actions. Remember, Solzhenitsyn has said, any argument with an intellectual can be ended by a punch to the face, which is true. The Spartans were famously laconic because they understood that actions speak louder than words and are more efficient. And in your life, you are so wrapped up in words, especially in Western nations, that you forget that actions get these things done quicker. And you know what happens when you replace your words by actions? People start respecting you because you are a little part of the natural order reasserting yourself in this chaos. And the problem with chaos is, the weakness is, it collapses. It takes an amazing amount of chaos to destroy order, and it's weak. The balance can be struck very easily. It just needs a few good men, a few manly men, a few men to assert order to bring back balance. Because remember, all order is also not sustainable, neither is all chaos. That is the time we live in. Balance. So most of you will continue living in illusion because you lack the willpower to actually do something about it until the thing and the danger is at your door and you're on your knees being shot in the head by the people you protected and the stupid things that you believed in. So until next time, hope you get out of the illusion. This is Wade telling you to keep it cool, keep it smart, and as always, in Wade World, enjoy.